Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined today by Maya Rupert. Now, just a little bit about her. She received her BA from UC Santa Barbara. If I'd gone to school at the University of California at Santa Barbara, there's no way that I would have ever graduated. I'm not good at swimming, so I couldn't have surfed. So I don't know what I would have done. I'd have worked on that pier there, I guess.
It's
She
tempting.
got her she got her law degree from UC Berkeley, very sort of moderately conservative school, UC
You know,
Berkeley. And she clerked for the Honorable Eric Clay of the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. And she is on the board of directors of the National Women's Law Center. And I I wanted to have Maya on here because she and I have appeared together on MSNBC, which is now MS Now. And every time I'm on with her, every I like her so much, and all the people that are around me who watch, they like her too. And I thought, this would be a very interesting person to have on because, we're sort of on. I don't even know if we're on opposite. Look, what I look for, Maya, in somebody is can we reach some sort of an agreement on something? It's not we
yeah.
don't. Am I right on that? I mean, we don't have to get in our corners. What do you think about that?
Listen, first
And
of all,
why are
thank
you
you.
coming on to be with me today?
No, listen, first of all, thank you for that intro. And truly, because I have the same experience. Every time we've appeared together, when I come off, everyone I know sort of texts and is like, you guys have a great rapport. And and I think there is something, and I imagine this is true on both of our sides, that people find endearing about that interaction in a moment where we are constantly being told that because we are so divided, it is impossible to not agree on every issue politically and to have a cordial, fun conversation where you actually do reach agreement on some things. That used to not be such a rarity, and I think that it is right now. And I think that's why there is something really there's something appealing about that for I think all of
Well,
us.
well, don't you think it's what I think about you? I think you're kind. You have strong opinions, obviously, but it's wrapped in kindness.
Thank you. That means a lot. I think, I remember when I was younger, my dad was a big Lakers fan, so I was a big Lakers
Wait, now
fan.
tell us about how you grew up. Now you're going to the lake. Did you go to Lakers games?
And not as a kid. When
Okay.
I after law school, after clerking, I lived in LA for about 3 years, and I did get to go fairly often to Lakers games. But as a kid, no, we were watching on TV.
And go ahead. Where did you grow up then?
So I was actually technically born in Ohio. I was born in Cleveland. Both of my parents are from Cleveland, Ohio, but moved to California when I was one. So I generally just say I'm from California. Small desert town. Grew up in Joshua Tree, in Yucca Valley. Like people know it more now, but at the time, these were like tiny, tiny little
Well,
towns.
that's because you too made
You
the
too.
Joshua Tree
You
album.
too. Yes, yes. And now with like Coachella being a bigger thing, I think people
Hmm.
go there more. But when we were growing up, my sister and I, it was just a very small desert town. It was a predominantly white area. My sister and I were very often the only black kids in our classes and things like that. But we loved it. Had a really good relationship both with my sister and my parents. And I remember my dad, he taught us very early to love the Lakers and it stuck. But I remember one time talking to him about, because if you loved the Lakers in the 80s, you hated the Celtics. So I made a comment once about, would he not like to watch a game with a Celtics fan? He said, I would love to watch a game with a real Celtics fan. I think I would have more fun watching with a real Celtics fan than I would have watching with most casual fans of the Lakers. And that always stuck with me because what he explained is that they would likely love basketball for the same reasons he loved basketball. They were just rooting for different teams. And I think that for
That's
me,
interesting. That's
right?
really interesting.
But that always stayed with me, and it was how I thought about politics in a lot of ways. I can have a lovely conversation with people who disagree with me, but they disagree with me for the same reasons I believe what I believe. And when they are rooted in kindness and they are rooted in a genuine sense of this is how we can do best by each other. Even if we come to different conclusions, I would rather like that to me is I would rather sit and watch a game with the Celtics fan. What is hard right now is I feel like we have a lot of people who are not rooting for any team and don't love the game in the same way. And that's the part where I have a hard time. But as long as we're rooting for something that at its core is the same, I rather enjoy talking to people that I disagree with on deeper issues.
In your bio here, by the way, you've done really well in your podcast. You've gotten awards.
Thank
I mean,
you.
you were nominated for the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Podcast in a Limited Series. Amazing. You were campaign manager for Julian Castro, and then you were with Elizabeth Warren, and then you were in a losing race for the mayor of the, I guess, in New York City.
New
Yeah.
York
So,
City, yep.
yeah. So you've had your challenges in this business,
Yes.
right? Yeah. But here's what I wanted to say that I wanted to ask you about. I don't know how the Democrats could actually win a national presidential campaign. If we look at the Electoral College, right? How is that supposed to happen, Maya? What would be your prescription?
So I think that we have, I mean, this cycle in particular, what we're seeing, I think, are voters who are tired of a status quo. And they're so tired of that that they are willing to vote for, I think, people that they find objectionable in another number of ways, but are saying, I'm willing to break the system. And I get that the system's not working for you. And I think for a very long time, Democrats have, for not being the conservatives, we tend to be a little more small c conservative, more institutionalist. There has been historically a lot of, don't worry, we'll get everything back to normal. I think the Democrats can win if we meet the urgency of the moment with actual urgency of solutions. I think that people are ready for the thing is, Democrats' policy positions are not unpopular, but I think that what we have done is very often let ourselves get sort of bogged down in sort of talking about them in ways that it's like if you're not already with us, it's not going to resonate with you. So I think what we need are communicators who are going to take a democratic message and say, this is about making your life more affordable. This is about making things easier for you. And if we can focus on that, I think we can end up in a place where people are willing to vote. We're already seeing it. People are not being, they're not like clinging to, well, this is my party, so I'm voting with my party. People are willing to willing to break with party, but we're going to have to give them a reason to vote. And I think that has been a big challenge for us.
Okay, so Maya, let's kind of look at this because I agree with you. I think that people now, it's kind of hard. People say, "Wow, the American people," and I always think, "Well, who are you to know what the American people? You're just one people. You're not the
Right.
American people." But when I look at this, the energy seems to be, and I don't know how much you know about me, but I'm kind of like, I'm not red, I'm not blue, I'm sort of like right in the middle, which is always a struggle because people think the middle's boring and all that stuff. But I'm just sort of an analyst now in my life.
Right.
But I am a conservative. But at the same time, the party that I see, Republicans, doesn't look anything like the party I joined. But neither here nor there. When we think about this, I agree with you that people are sort of tired of the chaos, the meanness that they perceive, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but what are you going to do about the position of Democrats when they were defunding the police, the tax? We got to tax all these people, and that's a message to people. You see, Mondami now in New York is saying, if you don't raise tax on billionaires or millionaires, then I'm going to just raise property taxes, which affects everybody. The ID politics. What would be an agenda that Democrats could win with? That would be copacetic with the values of the vast majority of Americans.
Right. So what I think is interesting is that the Democrats have like I think let's take defund the police because I think it's actually a really good example of one of the things that Democrats get hit on a lot. But when we think about how it sort of played out, it doesn't quite match our rhetoric around it. So defund the police was an activist slogan, right? Like no one was trying to say, vote for me for president, I'll defund the police. That came out of activists. And there was a point in time, and I feel like this was true, that we used to be able to have an activist position, a political position, a policy position, an academic position, and they didn't all collapse in on each other. So the activists would say, you should defund the police. And the politicians are going to say, I'm going to go as far as my values will take me, and I still need to get elected. So the activist job was to go out to people and say, hey, you need to get on board with this. So the politician can say, defund the police and still get elected, right? I do think that at some point we lost that. Activists started talking directly to politicians. So you would hear defund the police, and then politicians would feel pressure to say something, but nobody did any community organizing. So no voters were brought along with them. But here's what's interesting about defund. Right now, you will get a lot of politicians who will say, I'm not for defund the police. Now, I think that there should be an alternative to 911 that you can call when an emergency doesn't require, you know, a lethal
Right.
force. I don't necessarily think that traffic cops should carry guns. I think there should be a lot more focus on mental health and de-escalating a situation. All of those were tenets of the defund movement. The movement was never just take all the money away and get rid of police. It was a series of things that said we over rely on police to do all this other community stuff, and we should change that. So, in a lot of ways, defund actually represents a really great victory because now politicians will run from the slogan, but they adopt a lot of the policies, and that's not even just Democrats. You will hear Republicans say some of those same things. So I always like to offer that because I do think that sometimes Democrats the role that the activists play in the Democratic Party is a critical one. And I sometimes think they're too easy of a punching bag because it's like, well, no one's going to get elected saying defund the police. Well, no one has to if you can say, I don't like defund the police, but I like all this other stuff. And I think that really is the agenda that Democrats win on. If we step away from the messaging of the issue, very often the issues we're talking about are popular. Um, Abortion access.
Well, let's stay on
Oh,
defund
oh,
for a
sorry, go ahead.
second because
Yeah, let's do it.
I think all the points that you made are really good. I think you happen to be right about the vast majority of them, in my opinion. Um, but that's not what people don't hear. Okay, we live in a social media age,
Yes,
Maya. All
yes,
people do is click. And so I can tell you that there's a lot of Republicans or people who could vote for what you just outlined who don't ever hear the predicate.
right.
And so you're kind of tarred with that. And then we were going through the ICE business. You know, I talked to some Democrats during that period, and I said, look, the people are with you on the fact that the ICE behavior has been completely out of line, outrageous, mean, and mean spirited, and everything else, including deaths. But if you go too far on this, we're going to abolish ICE, then you're in a position where you start moving these people who were with you now back to their corners. So
Right.
the question is, and there's a sense that it is the left that is going to force the nomination of a leftist candidate for president in 28. How do you, is that where the energy is? And how does that all work?
I think that is a lot of where the energy is, but I think there's a way of doing it and still appealing to people, even if they're in their corners, right? I think that to some extent, yes, if we say abolish ICE, there are going to be some people who are like, well, I don't believe in that, so I'd rather mean-spirited enforcement. So I think what we need is a way of talking about this that makes people. I think one of the biggest mistakes Democrats have made is adopting Republican frames on some of these issues. We used to talk about immigration as a full, comprehensive system. It was a pathway to citizenship. It was shoring up asylum. It was, yes, enforcement. That was an element, but that wasn't all of it. At some point, enforcement and deportation became our entire proxy for talking about immigration. If a Democrat were to say, what I want to do is fix our asylum process, have a real pathway to citizenship, because it is no coincidence that the chaos at the border started when we stopped saying there could be a legal pathway to citizenship. People aren't just committed to breaking immigration law, but we have to accept the reality that people have been here, are a part of our economy, are a part
Right,
of our
right.
communities. So let's talk about, so I think that's part of the issue is it's if we just let the people at the margins lay out the frame and then respond to it, yes, Democrat positions seem sort of
Okay.
way out there. But we've
You're on a
got to
great one
start.
here. You're on a great one here because then the view is, oh, well, Democrats are for open borders. Just let anybody in, right? I mean,
Right.
I'm just trying to tell you why it's
Yes.
so difficult for you to win elections in Iowa or in Indiana or in Nebraska or Alabama or whatever. So you got labeled with open borders, correct?
Right.
How did
Right.
that happen?
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, I was probably part of the culprits on that because when in 2020, it was Secretary Castro who said we need to decriminalize border crossings. Again, that doesn't mean you can't deport. That doesn't mean everyone is suddenly magically here and they're documented, but it means right now, a lot of times when we see families getting separated at the border, it's because the adult has committed the crime of crossing the border. So if we don't want family separation,
Yeah.
if we don't want to see some of the inhumanity we've seen, decriminalizing. But again, that's not open borders. But I understand everyone is not going to sit down with their like policy notebook and say this is what this means. But I do think that we have to be willing to take on, all right, let's talk about what open borders really is. Because when we run from it, we just keep going to, okay, well then we'll deport even more people. We'll just do it humanely. And again, we are always going to lose when the whole frame is enforcement and deportation. But we can win when the frame is a humane immigration system. And I think for too long we have run from the stuff that we haven't been able to win on, and we've got to take it on.
Okay, let me bring up one more here. So they asked Kamala Harris, "Do you think that boys should play on the same basketball team as girls?" And it took her a half an hour to finish her answer, and I never knew what she really thought about it. Okay. So, I mean, that's like a common sense thing, right? I don't want some big boy knocking my daughter around on the basketball court. That's not fair. But yet you got labeled. And I remember talking to Sherrod Brown about this. And I said, Sherrod, because he would call me up and say, well, what do you think of this and that? And since he's a professional, I would say, okay, well, this is what I think about it. You think about it however you want. He refused to delineate anything, and he lost, of course. You see, there's another example of sort of getting taught. And now maybe you think that's okay for boys to play on the same basketball team as girls. That's okay if you do. I'm just saying it ain't going to work in most of America.
So, and I think this is, once again, it's an example of somewhere where we have been unsuccessful. So we started dodging the question. How I would respond to that question genuinely is, all right, what are we talking about? Boys playing on the same team as girls in basketball. Are we talking about 7-year-olds? Because 7-year-olds are very often playing on co-ed teams anyway,
Right,
because
right.
they're not even, it's not
Gotcha.
boys and girls. It's right. It's the orange team because nobody's 7-year-old is that good at basketball. Are we talking about high schoolers where where there's potentially a scholarship involved and we're talking about like, is someone going to get access to, right? And I think we talk about them differently. I think we say, honestly, no one's 7-year-old girl is being impacted by the 7-year-old trans girl also getting to play with her. And any differences based on gender at that age are not real. If we are talking about like high school and close to professional athletes, there were already smarter people than us dealing with it. It was the NCAA and they had rules and it had been working until some cynical person decided that trans people should be a political wedge, and now presidential candidates are asked about high school basketball. That's not even their area. So that's the thing. We've got to start taking these issues on because we don't have losing arguments. We just have people who are maybe not secure responding.
Maya, uh, when you run for president, which you know I did, there is no question that is out of bounds. They could, I mean,
There's obviously no,
okay,
they can
okay.
ask you,
No, no,
but
no.
the
Here's what
idea that you have to have a position on that is that is
well, I
we're
mean,
talking
look,
about a
yeah.
tiny percentage of the population.
No, 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 no. But hey, listen, the issues I brought up here, because I asked this guy down in Florida about why he's so much fired up for Trump and why did he think why was Biden so bad? And he just ticked off these three things: the border, what were the other ones I brought up? Defunding the police and all that. So I think what I'm hearing you say is that maybe Democrats are taking the bait on what would be bumper sticker politics. Instead of saying, "Oh, wait a minute, you're not getting me in the trick box here. I'm going to tell you what I think about that." You know, do I think do I think that we should defund the police? No. But just the way you then answered it, do we
Right.
need to have more mental health? Do we need to have, blah, 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 however you answered it. But it seems to me as though they're not learning that. Now, I think you're going to win the House, okay? You're going to win the House because of the motivation of the Democrat voter and the anger towards the administration. But then what comes next? What are you going to do for me? You say affordability. What are you going to do to make things more affordable to me? I don't know
Right.
what the Democrat plan is.
So, and I will say this, if Democrats learn nothing from the Trump administration, we've got to take away from it the fact that the idea that government just has to work slow has to become a thing of the past. The idea that Democrats, when we get elected, there is a study and then we'll pilot it. And then if it's successful, we'll roll it out. People people have changed their attention span for how government works and responds to them. And because we've had Donald Trump willing to break it, we are now, I think, in a changed universe. So the plan needs to be not just here are the things that we're going to do, but this is the stuff that will happen that will impact your tax liability this year. We are going from this to this. We are giving, we, workers in this country deserve a raise and here's how we're doing it, right? We've got to be able to match the speed. And I think the discomfort with that, the Democrats have tended to be more institutionalist. That is what I hope we lose from this moment. I hope that we lose that sense that government can't move with the urgency that people's lives are experiencing. So that is my hope that 2028, it's not just the Democrats' agenda, because anybody can roll that out, but it's somebody speaking with this is how we're going to do it. And the good news is Donald Trump just gave us a blueprint for how you use executive authority. And we've got to steel our spines and be willing to use that same authority, but use it on behalf of the people. And if somebody is talking like that, I think they win states regardless of red or blue. I think you get people who are struggling right now who want that.
Uh, Bill Clinton took on the left sister soldier moment, right? Um, Barack Obama, uniquely, an enormously talented professional politician, president, somehow didn't get caught in this. He never kind of got caught in the gender politics or he somehow escaped because he's a master at communicating, I suppose. Do the Democrats need a sister soldier movement here to say that, a lot of people think AOC, who I don't really have never met her, I've never spoken to her, extremely talented young woman. Republicans, when they hear, they go, "Ah, rah, rah, rah." No, but I think I admire people that can communicate. They think the Democratic Party is like run by AOC, and they don't like that. I'm talking about the voters that you need to
Sure.
get to win.
Yep.
So what do you do about this?
So I think there are two things here. AOC is, for a lot of people, she like epitomizes the progressive left wing of the party.
Right.
But you started also talking about gender and race politics. She's also a young woman of color. So I don't know if we're talking about voters who are uncomfortable with her identity or her.
No, I'm not talking
Okay.
about that. Well, hey, you never know, okay?
Well,
But I
right.
think it's more I giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying
Yes.
that they're not racist or whatever. This idea that Mondami, he's a socialist, she's a socialist, that's what I'm talking about. The fact
Yeah.
that they apply these views to them and think that that's what the Democrats are.
Right.
I'm not trying to be combative here. I'm just
No,
trying to lay out for you
you're
what
not.
I can see
You're
the
not being
illness
combative
that
at all.
okay, all
No,
right,
no, no,
good.
no. I was thinking because you're right, but I think that and I think again, this is one of those words. You say socialist and everyone goes, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
They're both democratic socialists. Like they don't run from it. I think the best spokespeople we have for this are people who say, guys, we already have socialism, but it only ever benefits corporations. It only ever benefits billionaires. When we want to, as a society, take care of people, we call it socialism. When we as a society decide we can't let a bank fail, we call it something else. That's what we need. We need people saying what we're talking about is using that same lens, but for you and for your family. And when you are in trouble,
Mm.
that has to be, we've got to stop letting those labels define us and make it so we aren't allowed to say anything. And you when you mention identity politics, I think it's the same thing. We are at a point where we will run. People will say identity politics. No, 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 that's not what I meant. We have got to say all politics is identity. Every time we say we need to figure out how to appeal to white working class voters, which we do, that's identity politics.
That's
So
right.
we've got to stop conceding all of these little buzzwords
Well,
and
these
saying,
labels and
yeah,
labels.
and immediately saying, okay, we have the losing argument
But
there.
maybe you need to reject them. Maybe you need to say, "Wait a
Yes,
minute. I don't agree with that. That label you're trying to put on me. I reject that. And let me tell you what I think. Maybe that's
right,
the way."
right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think we need candidates who are going to speak directly to voters. People are done with talking points. Speak directly to voters with clarity. And yeah, when you disagree, don't try to, like tap dance around it and not answer. Say, I'm rejecting your frame, and here's my answer.
Do you think that a conservative, a center left politician can be elected president out of the Democratic Party?
Yes.
You do.
I think we have a lot of evidence that we are capable of electing center
O-
left candidates for sure. I
Okay.
mean, look, I think
Okay. Who would you put up there? I mean, I don't want you to, I know you're not favoring anybody at this point, but who would you say would be appealing to, the people in the Midwest or in the South?
but this is my point. And I will
It's
say
your
right
point,
now,
right?
I'm working with Charles Booker, who's running for Senate in Kentucky. And he is
Okay.
running talking about Medicare for all. He is
Right.
running talking about like, you know, a plan 40 for 40. If you work 40 hours, you should be making at least 40K. And we need a way to make that first 40K for everybody tax free, right? He is running on progressive ideas and he's running in a deep red state. And he is dominating the Democratic primary. That's less interesting. But he's also within single digits of the Republican frontrunner. I don't concede that the only way we get the Midwest and the South is with a center left candidate, especially when that means we are going to get back to, don't worry, guys, we're going to return norms. We're going to get, people don't want to hear that right now. People in the Midwest and the South are hurting and they want to hear somebody talking seriously about, I know what you're dealing with and I've got solutions for it.
Yeah. There's a lot of truth to what you just said because, a lot of what you said here. Because I noticed when I was running Maya in New Hampshire, people didn't really want to know my plan for this, that, or the other thing. They wanted to know, do you get me?
Yeah.
And well, another fellow out of Kentucky who I happen to like a lot is Andy Bashir, and he won,
Yes.
but he's sort of center. He's sort of center left, I would say. I mean, his dad, I know his dad quite well. His dad's a pal of mine.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah. Oh yeah, Steve Bashir. He is one clever man. He sort of had the magic. Yeah, he and I work together a lot. I like him very, very much.
Okay.
He's a great guy. And the question is, does Andy have the spark? Does he have, I guess that's part of it, right? I mean, it's always that certain magic that has to come with you as a candidate. Agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, I give Governor Bashir a lot of credit for really not he's making it very clear that he has aspirations, he has a vision, and I love that. I love it when candidates are just straight up and are just kind of like, this is I want the person who treats this one like it's the one they've been waiting for. So don't hide behind we're considering it, blah blah blah. If you know you want to do it, write a book and start running. I love it.
Do you think that maybe America could be looking for a boring politician in 28?
You know,
You know what I mean by that? Yeah.
I've heard that a lot. I've heard a lot of people say
Really?
yeah, a lot of people have said we've got to go boring, we've got to go like, don't, we just got to get somebody that nobody can object to. But again, I don't think that's how voters are actually acting. We are
Hmm.
seeing too many upsets for me to say that's the safe bet. To me, the safe bet is take the issues that are popular, regardless of where you're running, and run on them with passion and like a laser focus.
Maya, we'll do this again, okay? And I'll
Can
see
we
you.
please, Governor? This was
Yeah,
so much
I'll
fun.
see you on the TV too.
Absolutely.
And then,
Thank you for
yes,
inviting me.
yes, and there may be some other things that we can do, but thank you. You are a lovely, lovely lady. Thank you, and
Thank you.
brilliant, and you got it all. So just like the Lakers had it all during those couple seasons, you got
Just
it
this
too.
couple.
And you hit
Hey,
the
thank you.
three, and you can rebound, and you can pass. I'll see you, Maya. God bless.
Thank you.
Bye.